Hello and welcome to the Sleepy Crime Story. Shadows of Angels. Chapter 1. The Santa Ana Winds. The heat in Los Angeles didn't just sit on you, it prosecuted you. It was a dry, malicious pressure that rolled down from the high desert, stripping the moisture from your lungs and the patience from your soul. It was October, the season of the Santa Ana Winds, what the old-timers called the devil winds, when the ions in the air made people edgy, and the city felt like it was waiting for a match to strike. In the corner office of a crumbling Art Deco building on Spring Street, the air conditioning unit rattled like a dying smoker, coughing out tepid puffs of air that smelled of wet dust and failure. Jack Vane sat behind a desk that was scarred by cigarette burns from a previous life. He wasn't smoking now, he hadn't for 3 years, but his fingers still danced with a phantom Zippo, flipping it open and closed in a restless rhythm. Vane was a man built of sharp angles and rough edges, wearing a linen shirt that had given up the fight against the humidity hours ago. He stared out the window, down at the concrete scar of the 110 freeway, watching the brake lights of the afternoon gridlock bleed together into a river of molten red lava. "You're brooding again, Jack. It's bad for the brand." Vane didn't turn. He knew exactly what he would see. Leo Kress was standing in front of the full-length mirror near the door, preening. Leo was the face of Vane and Kress Investigations. He was golden-skinned, gym-sculpted, and wore a suit that cost more than Vane's car. He smelled of Santal 33 and unearned confidence. "I'm not brooding," Vane rasped, his voice sounding like tires on gravel. "I'm calculating how we pay the rent if the Weinstein check doesn't clear by Friday." Leo chuckled, a sound devoid of worry. He adjusted his silk tie, checking his reflection for flaws that didn't exist. "Weinstein's good for it. He's just liquidating some crypto. Besides, you worry enough for both of us. That's the partnership dynamic. I bring the charm, you bring the existential dread." "You bring the charm, I do the work," Vane corrected, finally swiveling his chair around. "Did you download the surveillance footage from the marina?" "Uploading to the cloud as we speak." Leo tapped his newest iPhone model, grinning. "Relax, partner. The universe provides. Manifestation, Jack. Look it up." Vane opened his mouth to tell Leo exactly where he could shove his manifestation, but the intercom on his desk buzzed. It was a harsh, electric sound that cut through the lethargy of the room. "Jack." The voice belonged to Chloe, their assistant. She was 22, covered in stick-and-poke tattoos, and smarter than both detectives combined. Her voice dropped an octave, a signal Vane knew well. "There's a client out here. A walk-in." "We're closing up, Chloe," Vane said. "Jack," she insisted, the static crackling. "You're going to want to see this. She looks like trouble wrapped in Yves Saint Laurent." Leo's ears perked up like a hunting dog. He was away from the mirror in a flash, sweeping a stack of unpaid bills off the client chair and into a drawer. "Send her in, Chloe." When the door opened, the air in the room seemed to shift, the stale heat momentarily forgotten. The woman who entered belonged to a different Los Angeles, not the grimy downtown streets, but the manicured hills above the smog line. She was tall, moving with a fluid, liquid grace. She wore a midnight blue dress that clung to her silhouette, and oversized sunglasses that she removed slowly, revealing eyes the color of a swimming pool in January, blue, cold, and devastatingly clear. "Mr. Vane? Mr. Kress." Her voice was a husky whisper, trembling slightly at the edges. It was a performance, Vane thought immediately, but a damn good one. "I'm Leo Kress," Leo said, stepping forward, his smile dialed up to maximum wattage. "Please sit down. Can I get you water? Espresso?" "No thank you," she said, sinking into the chair. She clutched a designer handbag in her lap with white-knuckled desperation. "My name is Wonderly. Ruth Wonderly. I didn't know where else to go. The police, they wouldn't understand." Vane leaned back, steepling his fingers. He watched her hands. No wedding ring. Manicured nails, but the cuticle on her thumb was chewed raw. Anxiety. Real anxiety beneath the polish. "Why don't you tell us what the police wouldn't understand, Miss Wonderly?" Vane said, his tone flat. She took a shaky breath. "It's my sister. Corinne. She's run off." With a man. Leo nodded sympathetically, leaning against the edge of the desk to showcase his profile. It happens. Young love. No, she said sharply, then softened. This isn't love. It's possession. The man, his name is Rick Slade. Vane's eyes narrowed. The name hit the floor like a lead weight. Rick Slade? The one who used to run security for the cartels in Tijuana? Ruth Wonderly nodded, her eyes wide and glistening. You know him? I know of him, Vane said. He's a fixer. A heavy. The kind of guy you hire when you want someone to disappear, or when you want someone to stay disappeared. If your sister is with Slade, she's not on a romantic getaway. I know, she whispered. She sent me a location pin on WhatsApp an hour ago. They're here in the city. Downtown. Slade is meeting someone tonight to get some money, and Corinne thinks if she tries to leave, he'll kill her. She opened her bag. The sound of the zipper was loud in the quiet room. She pulled out an envelope thick with cash and slid it across the scratched mahogany. $5,000, she said. Cash. There's more if you help me. Leo stared at the money. It was more than they had made in the last 3 months combined. He looked at the woman, at the swell of her chest as she breathed rapidly, at the vulnerability etched into her perfect features. He was hooked. Line and sinker. We'll help you, Leo said, his voice dropping to a heroic baritone. We'll get her back. The job is just to get her away from him? Vane asked, ignoring the money. You want us to intercept a guy like Rick Slade? I just need you to be there, she pleaded, turning her gaze to Vane. Tonight. They are meeting at a hotel near Union Station. I'm supposed to meet them. If a man, a professional, is there watching, Slade won't try anything. He doesn't want witnesses. Slade eats witnesses for breakfast, Vane muttered. Jack, come on, Leo interjected, standing up straight. It's a babysitting gig. Easy money. I'll take it. I'll tail Slade, wait for the sister to separate and grab her. You hold down the fort. Vane looked at his partner. He saw the bravado, the greed, the fatal underestimation of the danger. Leo, Slade carries a Sig Sauer and he knows how to use it. This isn't a divorce case. I carry a Glock and I know how to use it too, Leo smiled, patting the holster beneath his jacket. He turned back to Ruth Wonderly and took her hand, holding it a second too long. Don't you worry, Miss Wonderly. I'll bring Corinne back to you before the bars close. Ruth smiled, a fragile, grateful thing. Thank you, Mr. Kress. You're a brave man. Vane felt a cold prickle at the base of his neck. He watched the interaction, the way the light from the window caught the dust motes dancing between them. It felt staged. It felt like the first act of a tragedy. Just be careful, Leo, Vane said, but his partner wasn't listening. He was already spending the money in his head. Chapter 2. The Sound of Midnight. Nightfall in Los Angeles didn't bring relief, it just changed the lighting. The sky turned a bruised purple, reflecting the endless sprawl of sodium lamps and neon signs. The heat radiated up from the asphalt, baking the city from below. Jack Vane was at his apartment in Echo Park. It was a small, bachelor pad cluttered with books and empty takeout containers. He was lying on his couch, listening to the erratic hum of the refrigerator and the distant wail of sirens, the city's lullaby. He couldn't sleep. The encounter with Ruth Wonderly replayed in his mind like a corrupted video file. Her eyes. They were too alert for someone so terrified. And Rick Slade. Why would a heavy like Slade run off with a girl just for romance? It didn't track. The phone rang at 2:43 a.m. It wasn't a ring, it was a scream in the silence. Vane stared at it for 3 seconds before picking it up. He knew. You don't get calls at 2:43 a.m. with good news. Vane, he answered. Jack. It's Mendez. Detective Ray Mendez. LAPD homicide. A good cop in a bad system. His voice was heavy, coated in exhaustion. What is it, Ray? You better come down here, Jack. We're at the corner of Bush and Stockton. Just off the tunnel. Is it Leo? Vane asked. He sat up, the room spinning slightly. There was a pause on the line. A heavy, pregnant silence. Yeah, it's Leo. I'm sorry, Jack. He's gone. Vane didn't say anything. He hung up the phone. He stood in the middle of his dark living room, feeling absolutely nothing. No grief. No shock. Just a cold, mechanical clarity. He walked to the closet, put on his shoulder holster, checked his weapon, and grabbed his keys. The drive to the crime scene was a blur of neon and shadow. The city felt abandoned, a hollow stage set waiting for the actors to die. When he arrived, the scene was already lit by the strobe light flicker of 3 patrol cars. The blue and red lights danced across the wet pavement. Someone had opened a fire hydrant nearby, or maybe a pipe had burst, creating a dark mirror on the asphalt. Mendez was waiting by the yellow tape. He looked tired, his face sagging under the weight of too many nights like this. "Hey Jack," Mendez said softly. Vane ducked under the tape. "Where is he?" "Over by the fence." Don't go too close, Jack. It's messy." Vane walked past him. He had to see. He had to know. Leo Crest lay on his back, his arms spread wide as if he were welcoming an old friend. His expensive suit was ruined, soaked in blood that looked black in the dim light. His Tesla key fob was lying a few feet away, glistening. But it was his face that stopped Vane. Leo still had that smile, or a grotesque parody of it. His eyes were open, staring up at the smog-choked stars he never believed in. "One shot," Mendez said, coming up behind Vane. Directly to the chest. Burn marks on the jacket. Whoever did this was standing right in front of him. Close enough to kiss him. "His gun?" Vane asked. "Still in the holster." He didn't even reach for it, Jack. He knew the shooter. Or he didn't think he was in danger. Vane looked down at his partner. He thought of Leo in the mirror, fixing his tie. Manifestation. "Where's Slade?" Vane asked, tearing his eyes away from the body. "We put an APB out." "But Jack, there's something else." 10 minutes ago, a patrol car found another body 4 blocks from here. In a storm drain. Vane turned to Mendez. "Slade?" Mendez nodded. "Shot in the back of the head. Execution style." Vane took a slow breath, tasting the copper in the air. "So Leo kills Slade and someone kills Leo? Doesn't make sense. Leo's gun is clean." "No," Mendez said, stepping closer, his voice dropping. "It means someone played them both. Someone cleaned house." The wind picked up, rustling the crime scene tape. It sounded like dry leaves or whispers. Vane looked at the darkness beyond the fence. He felt the weight of the $5,000 Ruth Wonderly had placed on the desk. "This wasn't a kidnapping, Ray," Vane said, his voice cold as ice. "This was a setup. And I'm going to find the bitch who wrote the script." "Jack, don't do anything stupid," Mendez warned. "Lieutenant Graves is already looking to pin this on you. He knows you and Leo had issues. He knows about you and Leo's wife." Vane froze. "That's over. It's been over. Does Bianca know that? Does Graves know that?" Mendez sighed. "Go home, Jack. Let us handle it." Vane looked at Leo one last time. He reached down and gently closed his partner's eyes. It was the only tender thing he had done for Leo in years. "I can't go home, Ray," Vane said, standing up and turning toward the city lights. "I have a client to visit." Chapter 3: The Fragrance of Deceit. The sun rose over Los Angeles not with a gleam of hope, but with the harsh glare of an interrogator's lamp. By 8 a.m., the heat was already clawing at the windows of Jack Vane's apartment. He hadn't slept. His eyes were shot through with red veins, and his mouth tasted like old pennies and cold coffee. He stood in his small kitchen, watching the steam rise from his mug, when the knocking started. It wasn't the polite rap of a neighbor. It was heavy, rhythmic, and carried the weight of bad news. Vane opened the door. Bianca Crest stood there, looking like a ghost that had wandered into the wrong century. She was draped in a black silk robe that cost more than Vane's car, her blonde hair unbrushed, her mascara smeared into dark hollows beneath her eyes. "Jack," she whispered, and then she was inside, collapsing against his chest. Vane didn't move. He didn't put his arms around her. He just stood there, a pillar of salt. "I heard Bianca. I was at the scene." She pulled back, her eyes searching his face with a frantic, terrifying intensity. "They say he was shot. They say it was Slade. But the police, they were asking me questions, Jack. Questions about us. There is no us, Bianca. Not for a long time. Is that what you told them? She grabbed the lapels of his shirt, her knuckles white. Is that why you did it? Did you kill him so you wouldn't have to hide anymore? So we could finally... Vane grabbed her wrists and firmly pulled her hands away. His voice was a low growl. I didn't kill Leo. I didn't like him most days, but I didn't kill him. And if you tell the cops anything else, you'll be the one sitting in a cell for making false statements. She stared at him, her grief curdling into something sharp and venomous. You're cold, Jack. You're as cold as the concrete he died on. LA is a cold town, Bianca. Even in a heat wave. He walked to the door and opened it. Go home. Call your lawyer. And stay away from the office. She left without another word, but the scent of her expensive, cloying perfume lingered in the hallway like a threat. Vane waited until her car pulled away, then he headed for the Wilshire Grand Hotel. He had a date with a liar. Chapter 4: The Painted Bird. The suite was on the 42nd floor, a glass-walled cage that overlooked the shimmering haze of the city. When Vane entered, Ruth Wonderly, or whoever she was standing by the window watching the tiny cars crawl like ants below. She didn't turn around. Is he really dead? Leo Kress is at the morgue, Vane said, walking into the room and tossing his jacket onto a velvet sofa. And Rick Slade is in a storm drain with a hole in his head. You want to tell me the version of the story that doesn't involve me calling the cops? She turned then. The Ruth Wonderly of yesterday, the trembling, vulnerable sister, was gone. In her place was a woman who looked like she had been carved out of obsidian. She poured a glass of amber liquid from a crystal decanter and took a long sip. My name is Elena Corves, she said. And there is no sister. There never was. Shocker, Vane muttered. What was the play, Elena? Why Slade? Why my partner? Slade was supposed to protect me, she said, her voice steady now. I hired him in Macau. We had something, a piece of art. Something people kill for. But Slade got greedy. He thought he could sell it behind my back. I needed him gone, and I needed someone to find out who he was talking to. So you used Leo as a sacrificial lamb. Vane stepped toward her, his shadow long on the plush carpet. You knew Slade would kill anyone tailing him. You wanted them to take each other out. I didn't think Leo would die, she lied, though her eyes didn't flicker. I thought he was better than that. You're the one who's supposed to be the legend, Jack. Leo was just the noise. The noise is dead. And you're still holding the bill. Vane reached out and took the glass from her hand, setting it on the table. Where is it? The thing Slade was trying to sell. I don't have it, she whispered, and for the first time, Vane saw a flicker of genuine fear. He hid it. And now the others are coming. They're already here, Jack. In this city. As if on cue, the muffled chime of the suite's doorbell echoed through the room. Vane drew his weapon in one fluid motion, gesturing for Elena to stay back. He looked through the peephole. Standing in the hallway was a man who looked like he had stepped out of a high-fashion magazine from the 1940s. He was small, impeccably dressed in a light gray suit with a lavender pocket square. He held a silver-topped cane and smelled so strongly of gardenias that Vane could smell it through the door. Vane opened the door halfway, the gun hidden behind his leg. We're not ordering room service. The man smiled, showing teeth that were too perfect to be real. Mr. Vane, I presume? A pleasure. My name is Julian Solis. I believe you have something, or someone, that belongs to my associates. I've got a lot of things, Solis. Mostly a headache. Why don't you move along before I find a reason to call the LAPD? Solis didn't flinch. He leaned slightly forward, his voice a silk thread. The Black Seraph, Mr. Vane. A statuette of a bird. Surely Miss Corves has mentioned it? It is a very heavy, very black, and very dangerous object to possess. Never heard of it, Vane said. A pity, Solis sighed. Because Orson Sterling is not a patient man. He is currently dining at a very exclusive restaurant in Bel Air, and he expects the bird to be the dessert. If it isn't, well, I'm afraid Los Angeles will become even more unpleasant for you than it already is. Solis reached into his breast pocket. Vane tensed, his finger tightening on the trigger. But Solis only pulled out a small, embossed business card. He tucked it into the doorframe. $5,000 just for information, Mr. Vane. $50,000 for the bird. Think about it. The dead don't need art, but the living need to pay their bills. Solis tipped his hat, turned on his heel, and vanished down the carpeted hallway. Vane closed the door and turned to Elena. She was leaning against the bar, her face pale. "Who is Orson Sterling?" Vane asked. "The fat man," she whispered. "The man who started this whole dance. He's been chasing that bird across 3 continents for 17 years. And if he's in LA, it means the blood has only just started to flow." Vane looked at the card in the door, then at the woman in the shadows. He felt the trap closing. He was a small-time PI in a town full of sharks, and he had just been handed the bait. "Pack your bags," Vane said, grabbing his jacket. "You're staying at my place. Not because I like you, but because you're the only map I've got to the person who murdered my partner." Chapter 5. The Glass Cage. Jack Vane's apartment in Echo Park was a place where light went to die. The walls were a nicotine-stained beige, and the air always tasted faintly of the freeway and old paper. Elena Korf sat on the edge of his worn leather sofa, looking like a sapphire dropped in a dustbin. She had shed the Ruth Wonderly persona, and with it, the last of her feigned warmth. "Solis won't stop," she said, her voice cutting through the gloom. "He's like a scent hound. And Twitch, the boy with the gun you saw earlier? He's Sterling's shadow. He's young, he's bored, and he likes the sound of things breaking." Vane was at his small kitchen table, cleaning his Glock 17 with methodical precision. The rhythmic click-slide of the metal was the only thing keeping his nerves from fraying. "Let them come. I'm tired of chasing ghosts. I want to meet the man who's paying for the bullets." "You don't meet Orson Sterling, Jack. You are summoned by him." The summons came sooner than expected. It wasn't a phone call. It was a black Escalade that pulled up to the curb outside his building at midnight, its engine idling with a low, predatory hum. 2 men got out. One was the boy, Twitch, wearing an oversized hoodie and a twitchy, caffeine-fueled grin. The other was a silent wall of muscle in a cheap suit. "The big man wants to talk," Twitch said, bouncing on the balls of his feet. He flashed a glimpse of a submachine gun tucked into his waistband. "He says the hospitality in LA has been lacking." Vane looked at Elena. She nodded slowly, a silent warning in her eyes. "I'll go," Vane said. "Keep the door locked. If I'm not back by dawn, take the money in the freezer and get a flight to somewhere without an airport." Chapter 6. The Gospel of Gold and Enamel. Orson Sterling's penthouse was a temple to excess, perched atop a skyscraper that looked down on the flickering lights of the Wilshire corridor. The walls were floor-to-ceiling glass, making the city look like a circuit board humming with electric life. In the center of the room sat Sterling. He was a mountain of a man, draped in a tailored silk robe that could have served as a tent for a smaller human. He was morbidly obese, yet he carried himself with an intellectual grace that was deeply unsettling. His eyes were small, buried in folds of flesh, but they sparkled with a terrifying razor-sharp intelligence. "Mr. Vane," Sterling wheezed, his voice a wet, cultivated rumble. "Pray sit. Have some sherry. It's an Amontillado, quite rare. Like the object we are both currently obsessed with." Vane sat. He didn't touch the drink. "Let's skip the wine tasting, Sterling. My partner is dead. Rick Slade is dead. And I've got a professional gardenia smeller named Solis breathing down my neck. Tell me about the bird." Sterling smiled, a slow spreading of ripples across his face. "Ah, the black Seraph. You see it as a piece of statuary. I see it as a ledger of human greed. It was forged in the 16th century, a gift from the Order of the Hospital of St. John, the Knights of Malta, to Emperor Charles V. It was meant to be a tribute, a falcon made of solid gold, encrusted from beak to claw with the finest jewels of the Orient." Vane leaned forward. "Gold?" Elena said it was black. "To hide its value, Mr. Vane?" Sterling's voice rose in excitement. "In 1539, it was seized by pirates. Over the centuries, It was coated in black enamel to look like a common trinket. It passed through the hands of kings, thieves, and generals. It was in the hands of a Greek dealer in the 20s, then a Russian general in the 40s. I have tracked it across 17 years in 3 continents. I found it in a private collection in Macau, held by a man who didn't even know he was using $1 million worth of gold as a doorstop. Sterling leaned back, his breathing heavy. Elena and Slade stole it from me. They thought they could cut me out. But you can't cut out the man who owns the map. And now? Vane asked. Now it is on its way here, Sterling whispered. A cargo ship, the La Paloma, is docking in Long Beach tomorrow morning. Slade had it shipped in a secure container. I want you to get it for me, Mr. Vane. I will pay you $100,000 for the delivery, and I will ensure that the police investigation into your partner's death evaporates. And if I say no? Sterling's smile didn't fade, but his eyes turned as cold as deep-sea water. Then Twitch gets to practice his aim. And Miss Corves will find that Los Angeles is a very small place to hide. Vane stood up. He looked out at the city, at the sprawling, glittering web of LA. He thought about Leo, about the blood on the asphalt, and about the weight of a gold bird that had been killing people for 500 years. I'll get your bird, Sterling, Vane said. But not for the money. I want the person who pulled the trigger on Leo. And I have a feeling that bird is the only thing that's going to bring them out of the shadows. Chapter 7. The Ghost Ship. The port of Long Beach at 4 in the morning is a forest of iron. Massive gantry cranes loom over the water like prehistoric predators, their shadows stretching across acres of stacked shipping containers. The air here doesn't smell like the city, it smells of diesel, rotting kelp, and the cold, indifferent Pacific. Jack Vane sat in his Mustang, parked behind a rusted warehouse. Beside him, Elena Corves was a silhouette of tension. She had a small Beretta 9mm resting on her lap, a detail Vane chose to ignore for the moment. The La Paloma is at berth 54, she whispered. Slade told me the manifest listed the Seraph as industrial hardware. It's in a crate under the name General Cargo 809. Wait here, Vane said. If the engine starts or if you hear more than 3 shots, drive. Don't look back. Vane stepped out into the fog. It was a thick, pea-soup marine layer that muffled the sound of the distant foghorns. He moved through the labyrinth of containers, his hand resting on the grip of his Glock. Every creak of the metal, every groan of the ships against their moorings, sounded like a footstep. He found the La Paloma. It wasn't a majestic vessel, it was a battered tramp steamer that looked like it was held together by rust and prayers. But something was wrong. There were no deckhands. No lights in the galley. Vane climbed the gangway, his boots thudding softly on the steel. As he reached the deck, the smell hit him. It wasn't diesel. It was the iron-sweet scent of fresh blood. He followed the trail to the captain's quarters. The door was swinging open, caught in the rhythm of the swell. Inside, the room had been tossed. Maps were scattered like autumn leaves. In the corner, slumped against a locker, was a man in a tattered uniform. Captain Jacoby. He was dying. 3 wet thuds in his chest told the story. His eyes were glazed, tracking a ghost in the room. When Vane knelt beside him, Jacoby's hand shot out, grabbing Vane's wrist with a strength fueled by pure adrenaline. The bird. Jacoby wheezed. Blood bubbled at the corners of his mouth. Who did this, Captain? Was it Sterling's people? Jacoby didn't answer. He reached behind the locker and pulled out a heavy bundle wrapped in several layers of greasy canvas and duct tape. It was about the size of a gallon of milk but weighed as much as a bowling ball. Take it. Jacoby gasped. Tell the order. His hand went limp. The light left his eyes, leaving him staring at the ceiling of a cabin he would never leave. Vane took the package. It felt cold even through the canvas. It felt like bad luck. As Vane turned to leave, a flash of red light caught the corner of his eye. A laser sight. He dove behind a steel desk just as a volley of suppressed gunfire shredded the wooden chair he had been standing next to. Twitch. It had to be. Sterling wasn't waiting for a delivery. He had sent his cleaners to ensure there were no witnesses left on the ship. Vane didn't fire back. He knew the layout of the containers better than the boy. He slipped out a side hatch, sliding down a mooring line to the dock, the heavy bird tucked under his arm like a deadly football. He ran through the fog, the sound of Twitch's boots echoing behind him, frantic and rhythmic. He reached the Mustang, threw the package into the footwell, and slammed the car into reverse just as a bullet shattered his side mirror. "Did you get it?" Elena screamed over the roar of the engine. "I got it," Vane barked, spinning the wheel and flooring it toward the terminal exit. "And I got a dead captain to go with it. The game just changed, Elena. Sterling isn't buying this bird anymore. He's taking it." Chapter 8. The Long Shadow of the Seraph. They didn't go back to the apartment. Vane knew the Escalades would be waiting there. Instead, he drove to a 24-hour diner in San Pedro, a place where the fluorescent lights hummed and the coffee was strong enough to peel paint. They sat in a back booth. The package sat on the table between them, looking innocuous in its greasy wrapping. "Open it," Elena whispered. Her eyes were wide, hungry. Vane sliced through the duct tape with a pocket knife. He peeled back the canvas, then a layer of bubble wrap, then finally, a thick shroud of black silk. The Seraph emerged. It was a falcon, its wings tucked tight against its body, its head turned slightly to the side as if watching something far away. It was covered in a thick, matte black enamel that seemed to swallow the diner's harsh light. It was ugly. It was heavy. It was the most beautiful thing Vane had ever seen. Is it really gold under there?" Vane asked, his voice low. "Sterling thinks so," Elena said, reaching out to touch the cold black surface. "A king's ransom. Enough to buy a new life. Enough to make Leo's death look like a rounding error." Vane pulled the bird back toward him. "It's not a life, Elena. It's a tombstone. Everyone who touches this thing ends up in a box. Slade. Leo. Jacoby. Who's next? Me. You. We can sell it ourselves, Jack. We don't need Sterling. I have contacts in Zurich. We could be gone by morning." Vane looked at her. For a moment, he saw the life she was offering. A villa in the sun. No more smog. No more blood on the asphalt. But then he saw the way she looked at the bird, not with love but with a terrifying, hollow greed. "I'm not a thief, Elena. I'm a detective. And I still haven't solved the only case that matters." He stood up, rewrapping the bird. "We're going to the Union Station. I'm putting this in a locker. And then we're going to call a meeting. All the players. All the liars. It's time to see who's left standing when the music stops." "You're walking into a trap," she warned. "I know," Vane said, his jaw set. "But I'm the one holding the bait." Chapter 9. The Devil's Share. The air in Jack Vane's apartment was thick enough to choke a man. The power had flickered out an hour ago, leaving the room illuminated only by the rhythmic, sickly pulse of a red neon sign from the liquor store across the street. Red, black, red, black. It bathed the faces of the gathered assembly in the colors of a fresh wound. Orson Sterling sat in Vane's only armchair, his massive frame overflowing the leather like melting wax. To his left, Julian Solis stood perfectly still, his gardenia scent now clashing with the smell of sweat and desperation. In the corner, Caleb Twitch leaned against the door, his hand never straying from the submachine gun slung under his arm. Elena Korv sat on the edge of the bed, her eyes darting between the men, a predator sensing the cage closing in. "The bird, Mr. Vane," Sterling wheezed, his voice a dry rattle. "The time for theatrics has passed. The sun will be up in 3 hours. I should like to be at 30,000 feet by then." Vane stood by the window, the unlit cigarette clamped between his teeth. He felt a strange, hollow calm. "We have a problem, Sterling. A partnership problem. Leo Kress is dead. Rick Slade is dead. Captain Jacoby is dead. The LAPD is looking for a body to throw in the furnace, and right now my name is at the top of the list. A tragedy," Sterling sighed. "But a manageable one. My offer stands. $100,000. Enough to buy the best legal defense, or a very comfortable life in a country without an extradition treaty." "Not enough," Vane said. "I need a fall guy. I need someone to hand to Detective Mendez. Someone who pulled the trigger." He turned his gaze to Twitch. The kid is young. He's impulsive. It wouldn't take much to convince a jury. He panicked and shot Leo. Twitch straightened up, his eyes widening. Hey. Shut up, old man. I didn't. Quiet, Caleb, Sterling barked. He looked at Vane with a terrifying, clinical detachment. A reasonable request, Mr. Vane. In business, one must occasionally write off an asset to save the enterprise. Twitch looked at his boss, his face pale with betrayal. Before he could raise his weapon, Solis had stepped behind him, a small, silver-plated pistol pressed into the boy's kidney. Give Mr. Vane the bird, Jack, Elena whispered. Let's just end this. Vane reached under the bed and pulled out the heavy package. He set it on the table. The room went silent. Even the neon sign seemed to stop buzzing. With a pocket knife, Vane sliced through the last of the silk. The black Seraph stood on the table, cold and indifferent. Sterling surged forward, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He pulled a jeweler's loupe from his pocket and pressed it to his eye. He produced a small steel file. Finally, he muttered. 17 years, the blood of kings, the fire of the Orient. He scraped the file against the bird's shoulder. A thin curl of metal spiraled away. He scraped again, harder this time, his movements becoming frantic. He stopped. The room was so quiet Vane could hear the ticking of his own watch. No, Sterling whispered. No. He grabbed the bird and slammed it against the edge of the table. A large chunk of the black enamel flaked off, revealing nothing but dull, gray, heavy lead. It's a fake, Solis said, his voice devoid of emotion. A decoy, Vane added, though he felt a sickening jolt of irony. Jacoby or Slade, someone switched it. Or maybe it was never gold to begin with. Maybe the Black Seraph has been a lead lie for 500 years. Sterling began to laugh. It was a horrible wet sound that shook his entire body. Istanbul, he wheezed, wiping tears from his eyes. The Russian. General Kemedov. He switched it in Hong Kong. He must have. Sterling straightened his robe, his momentary madness replaced by a chilling resilience. Well, Mr. Solis, it seems we have a flight to Turkey to catch. The hunt continues. And the boy? Solis asked, gesturing to Twitch. The police will find him here, Sterling said, walking toward the door. He is of no further use to me. Good day, Mr. Vane. You've been an interesting diversion. They left as quickly as they had arrived, leaving Twitch bound and gagged in the corner. Vane didn't stop them. He had a bigger fish to fry. Chapter 10. The cold light of day. The first light of dawn was hitting the Hollywood sign, turning the white letters a pale, sickly yellow. Vane stood in the center of the room looking at Elena. They're gone, Jack, she said, stepping toward him, her voice honeyed and soft. We still have the 10,000 sterling gave you as a down payment. We can leave. We can start over. Vane looked at her. Really looked at her. You killed him, Elena? She froze. What? Jack, we've been over this. Slade killed. Slade was a professional, Vane interrupted. He was being followed by a man in a loud suit and a Tesla. He would have led Leo on a chase or he would have lost him. He wouldn't have shot him in a dark alley 10 blocks from the hotel. That's a move made by someone who wanted Leo dead now. Vane stepped closer. You knew Leo was a pushover. You thought you could convince him to kill Slade for you. But Leo was a coward. He said no. So you took his gun or you used your own and you shot him. You knew that if Leo died, I'd come after Slade with everything I had. You used me to clean up your mess. Jack, I did it for us, she cried, the tears finally flowing. Real or fake, it didn't matter anymore. I love you. You felt it. Last night in the dark, you felt it. I'm a detective, Elena. I feel a lot of things. Mostly I feel like a chump. Vane picked up the phone. I'm calling Mendez. You can't, she screamed, her face contorting. They'll send me to Chino. They'll give me the needle. You love me. Maybe I do, Vane said, his voice cracking just a fraction. But I've got a partner in the morgue who's never going to see the sun again. And I've got a code. It's a lousy, broken, outdated code, but it's all I've got in this godforsaken city. When your partner is killed, you're supposed to do something about it. It doesn't matter what you thought of him. He was your partner. He finished dialing. Mendez? It's Vane. Come get her. I've got the bird, the girl, and the shooter. 20 minutes later, the apartment was crawling with blue uniforms. Detective Ray Mendez stood by the table, looking at the leaden bird. Elena was being led out in handcuffs, her silence more terrifying than her screams. She didn't look back at Jack. Mendez picked up the statue. He grunted at the weight. Heavy as a sin. What is it, Jack? All this blood, all these bodies, for a hunk of lead. Vane looked out the window at the city of Los Angeles. A city built on celluloid dreams and desert dust, where everyone was chasing a version of themselves that didn't exist. He thought of the centuries of men who had died for the gold that wasn't there. It's a gift from the past, Ray, Vane said, finally striking a match and lighting his cigarette. He took a long, deep drag, the smoke filling his lungs like a familiar poison. But what is it? Mendez insisted. Vane watched the smoke curl into the morning light, dancing like a ghost. The stuff, Vane whispered, that dreams are made of. If you found this story relaxing and helpful for falling asleep, please consider giving the video a thumbs up. It helps the channel reach more listeners looking for a moment of calm. Thank you for listening and sweet dreams.